Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the episode of the Spurs Up Show. We are finally back after about a month-long break. We are back. We've got a very, very special announcement to start the show. But first, if you're not subscribed to the Spurs Up Show, even though we took a break, still by far the best Gamecocks podcast on the internet, and about to get even better with the announcement I've got coming in just a second. Before we start, make sure, if you're not subscribed yet, be sure to do so. Check us out on iTunes, the Stitcher app, wherever you consume your media, wherever you consume your podcast. Be sure to check us out at the Spurs Up Show. Rate, subscribe, tell us you like, tell us you don't like. We appreciate all the feedback, obviously. Also, this is a podcast brought to you by the Armchair Americans, armchairamericans.com. Localizing your sports coverage content. Be sure to go check us out, armchairamericans.com, not only for the Spurs Up Show, but anything and everything to do with our Gamecocks coverage, the breaking news, recruiting as well. And also check us out on all of our social media accounts. We're on Twitter at ArmchairSCar, Instagram at ArmchairSCarolina, and Facebook Armchair South Carolina. Also, our podcast also has a Twitter account at the Spurs Up Show. Pretty self-explanatory. Give us a follow to follow everything with the Spurs Up Show, and check us out there. So without further ado, I'm going to get right to it. As all of you know, we've had a little bit of a break here. Last show I think we recorded and posted was early April. We had Barrett Salee on the show. Got a very, very special announcement. We have this is a brand new chapter and a brand new beginning, I'll say, for the Spurs Up Show. As everyone knows, the show started its origin about last year, I think the end of March. I think actually March 31st was the first date. We started out with Tyler Clark as my co-host. Some things have changed. Some things have shuffled and within the armchair world, and it's my pleasure to welcome on a good friend of mine, someone you've probably recognized we have on the show. I think maybe, not to brag, but our second most listened show ever. So the new permanent co-host of the Spurs Up Show, everyone please welcome Thomas Floyd to the show for now and forever. Tom the Bomb, what's up, dude? It's great to have you on. I'm glad you're joining us, and I couldn't be more excited.
I'm really pumped to start on the show. It's going to be a great thing. Basically, I'm the best South Carolina, anything there is. If you want information, just come to the show and listen to me talk for 20 minutes, and you're going to be blessed with anything you want to hear about.
Yeah. So tell the people a little bit. You're obviously a student at South Carolina. You write. If you follow us along with us at all, you've seen all of Thomas's stuff with us, all of his Armchair South Carolina recruiting stuff, does a lot of interviews, recruits, a lot of pieces, and now is going to be jumping on with us on the podcast, obviously every single week to break everything down. But give the people a little bit, anything you feel like the people need to know about, kind of who you are and what you're bringing to the table, I guess you could say.
I mean, yeah, I guess I'll give them a whole backstory. I started last summer as a content creator for Garnet and Black Attack, the SB Nation website. I was blessed with an opportunity with them because I felt passionate about writing about sports in general, and they gave me an opportunity. And through that, I met Alex Reynolds, who's now the editor-in-chief of Armchair Americans, and he gave me an opportunity to come over here and cover recruiting for South Carolina Armchair. And it's a thing that I take seriously because I know there's so much work that goes into recruiting with coaches, and it's such like an interesting thing to follow and see everything that's going on in the recruiting world. Because, I mean, really, like, I know players that get recruited, and I have ends with high school coaches, and I know a lot about football because I played high school football my entire life, been around football. And especially about the state of South Carolina, considering that I'm from here. I grew up an hour south of Columbia. I know anything and everything. Like, it's not from a cocky standpoint as much as, like, I get what's going on and I understand things that a lot of people, like, not that they don't understand them, but I feel like I have a great understanding of everything football related at the University of South Carolina. And it's not just football. I mean, I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. I understand most sports to a degree. Baseball is my weak point. That's why we have Chris on the show, because he's a baseball god. If you guys didn't know.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
But anyway, I cover mainly recruiting now for Armchair South Carolina, and eventually I'm going to be put into the role. Me and Jackson Raymer are going to be put into the role of the heads of the SEC recruiting for Armchair All-Americans, which is a great opportunity for the both of us. And I think this, along with the Spurs Up Show, is just going to do amazing things for Armchair and myself as a brand in general.
Boom, there you have it. All right. Well, that being said, good. Absolutely. We're going to move on into obviously there's been a ton of stuff that's happened in the last month. Hopefully this is just giving you all some time to listen to that Barrett Salee show that I last did with him, because it was a fantastic podcast. I'm not going to lie to you, but we're going to talk a little bit about kind of try to summarize, do our best to summarize exactly what has happened, just so you all know before we get any farther. We're going to be coming to you again every single week, breaking everything down. Obviously, again, we had a little bit of a hiatus and different reasons for that. But we are back. Had to get some things sorted out with getting Thomas on the show full time and myself getting back as well. But anyways, we will be back full time every single week. I know you're all thrilled to have us again. All right, so let's start off with some basketball. Thomas, we obviously you know, had brought this up. A lot of stuff has happened as far as the draft, as far as some dismissals. The biggest thing, how in the world did Rakeem Felder not do what he was supposed to do? I don't, you know, because we follow him on Twitter, obviously. He is such like a team guy.
He's dedicated. He really is dedicated.
Dude, like he tried to make it seem like he was doing everything right. And then Frank Martin just drops the hammer. I have two questions. One, do we even know what he did? And two, what did he not do is my question. I just don't understand.
It's hard. I don't get it either. Well, to me, I don't know. Well, there's been the whole – was he a part of the BB shooting thing originally, or is that he got – he wasn't part of that?
Man.
There's been so much stuff that goes on with some of the recruits, and we do have like a lot of recruits or players that come in for their freshman or second year and leave. Which is
basketball has been terrible with that though. They've been awful with that shit.
Well, a lot of it's like people just want to transfer because they're not getting playing time as freshmen, and a bunch of people come in and expect to play like heavy minutes, and sometimes it just doesn't work out that way.
Right.
But I mean, with Felder, I don't know what he was going on because it seems like he was tweeting something like every day about how like everything's going good.
He's
like
the best teammate. You thought he was like the best teammate.
Yeah, like for a fact. I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's a head case and just couldn't get it together up there or like what was going on with him. But he could have been like he would have been a great point guard for us. He wouldn't have been as versatile. But as versatile to me as PJ Dozier was, just because he was so long. But like Rakeem Felder was Isaiah Thomas looking you in the face and better on defense. Like I wish there was more what they could have done for him, but they gave him so many opportunities. Like I don't even blame them for kicking him off if he did do something at that point.
Just such a bad loss. I mean, it's a guy that you just once the season ended, everyone let's project the starting lineups for 2018, 2019. This is going to be such a great lineup, and now Rakeem Felder is no longer on the team. I say this cautiously because, as you remember, Thomas, I got absolutely destroyed on Twitter for making one little slight remark about Frank Martin. So I say this very cautiously. I mean, do you knock Frank Martin at all for the amount of turnover that South Carolina basketball's had and like losing all these recruits and these? I mean, even if it's you're saying like, okay, turnover happens, but I mean, is South Carolina not recruiting the right guys? Are they not recruiting high quality character guys as well as high quality skill guys? I mean, are they having to take more chances on recruits because they're not a blue blood program? Like, what is the deal?
I mean, I think it's kind of hard to tell a lot with her. I know, like I know with Frank Martin, the way he preaches is that he doesn't even offer just because of tape. Like he has to meet them and get to know them and know their family. And I don't know if it's something with like he just has just been missing on evaluating some of these kids, which might be true because it happens in every sport. You're gonna miss sometimes. There's nothing you can do about it. But I just don't know, man. Like I think a part of it is just normal. You're gonna have turnover every year, and kids are just gonna leave because they don't think they're getting playing time like they should get. And that's just a lot of that's attributed to the ego of the kids and that they think they deserve stuff when they, to me, probably haven't earned it like Martin thinks they have to do. I don't know, man. Like it's tough to say because Frank's done such a great job with the program, in my opinion. Because I mean, we went to a Final Four; it's never happened before. But at some point, fans are gonna have to realize, like, okay, the Final Four is great, but we've missed the NCAA tournament every other year. He's been here, and this is his team now. Like, there's no excuses at this point. Except, maybe losing PJ early hurt, but like it's not the biggest loss in the world. And Felder leaving hurts, and all those other players got kicked off hurts, but some of that you have to point the head coach and point to the assistants. Like there comes to a point when you have to like look yourself in the mirror and say, what are we not doing right that we need to do better?
Is Frank Martin that much of a hard ass where he's just like, I mean, because unless Rakeem Felder is just like putting on the biggest facade ever on social media, like he seemed kind of genuine, like he wants to be a part of the basketball team.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, is Frank Martin that much of a hard ass where he's just like, nah, I mean, it just comes to a certain point where it's like, dude, college kids are stupid and they're going to do stupid stuff. And with social media, you're going to know everything, I feel like. And it's like, I mean, Nick Saban is out here letting football players play when they've abused a girl or something like that. Like, what in the world could Rakeem Felder have done where he can't play the entire season? He's kicked off the team. I mean, what could he have done?
I know last year in the national championship, or maybe it was against Clemson. I can't remember the playoff. When one of Alabama's players literally like came off the field off of special teams on a kickoff and like almost got into a fight with an assistant coach.
Dude, that was the national championship, yeah.
And hasn't gotten kicked off the team as far as I know. And I mean, like, I know with watching these kids and seeing Frank Martin in person, the way he coaches and how hard he is on these players, like, you see how hard he is on Chris Silva. And Chris Silva was first team all everything in the SEC this year and the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. And I think part of him being a hard ass to them is making them better. But it comes to a point where, like, you're like, I know this has been a player having a coach who's in your face constantly. Like, you get tired of it. Like, it gets old fast. And when these kids are not playing and they're still getting yelled at and having to watch these other kids getting yelled at like this, maybe they just don't like it. Maybe that's a part of the reason we can't get bigger recruits like 5 stars or 4 stars constantly to come to USC, and we're having to get guys from Lithuania and stuff like that. Even though we have good players that have come from there, it's not – there are going to be misses, and I think it's going to happen even more if you're having to recruit players you normally wouldn't because of your coaching style. And it's nothing – because his coaching style got us to the Final Four, but a lot of that was on the back of Sindarius, Thornwell, and PJ too. So it's hard to say.
You know what the solution is? And this is just for all college athletics, but would help in this situation as well. They should make it where, you know what, you want to suspend a guy for something, but that's great. You have to say what it is. Like, you just have to. I'm so sick of this undisclosed violation of team rules BS. Like, give me a reason. If you can't say what the reason is, you can't suspend the kid, period, point blank.
Well, to me, it would be – if I was the player, I wouldn't want it to be out because this would be embarrassing on me. But then again, a part of that would make you become a better player, and you know you wouldn't make that mistake again. Or you wouldn't make that mistake in general if you knew it was going to come out to the public and embarrass your name and your brand.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, anyways, again, huge blow for the South Carolina basketball team, basketball program. I mean, I think Rakeem Felder was a guy. I think South Carolina fans were counting to be in the starting lineup this coming fall.
He could have averaged 15 next year probably just because he just put up so many shots a game, and with the fact that he would just make just ridiculous shots all the time would make him a 15. He could have been a 15, 5-2 player easily, and it wouldn't even been that hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other basketball topic we want to just touch on, both Chris Silva and Brian Bowen have they declared for the draft, or they're just exploring the draft waters, if you will?
Okay, you can declare for the draft and still go to the combine and still come back next year as long as you pull your name and as long as you don't sign an agent. And as far as I know, Bowen is only doing this because he doesn't know whether or not the NCAA is going to restate him for next year, or I think it's something along the lines of that. And I know Silva is just doing it probably just to get a feel, like whenever they have
what he needs to improve on.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And a lot of it to me is that he's probably going to end up having to add a 3-point game, like a long distance 3-point game to his shot, because he's, to my knowledge, 6'8". I could be wrong with that. I think he's 6'8". He's strong, but he's not like trying to think. He could fit into a Draymond Green role in like on a good team. That's his ceiling to me, and his floor is like a 5-year player in the NBA. If he graduated this year. But I think if he comes back next year and Bowen does
he's
too.
He's 6'9", by the way.
He's 6'9", an inch of difference. If Bowen and Silva come back next year and they make a March Madness run that South Carolina did like 2 years ago last year with when they had Sindarius and PJ, that's probably the reason both of them are on NBA rosters right now, to be completely honest. Because a lot of team owners just watch March Madness and say, oh, we're going to draft this guy because they went crazy in March Madness and waste a second-round pick because that's just what they do.
Yeah. I mean, I hate it, to be honest. I'm really hoping you're right, because Chris Silva going in the draft would be dumber than what PJ Dozier did. And, oh, boy, did I catch some flack on Twitter again for saying something like that. I just think –
people are going to hate you regardless.
Basketball is so weird because they can test the waters like that and come back, which, I mean, they should be able to, but it's always scary when you're just like,
well, it's different from football because you're not having to be like such like you had to be way more developed in your like growth as a football player than a basketball player, and I think that's a lot of it. And plus, I really do think all that Silva is doing is seeing like if NBA teams are really interested in him or not, and if he has a real shot at the NBA, and what he needs to improve upon for next year or for his future if he want to be like a 10-year player in the NBA. Like I think he has a chance, but I just don't know the way how
he needs another year of development to learn what a foul is.
Yeah, he can be. He was better this year. Don't get me wrong, but
he was.
His first 2 years were terrible.
He couldn't be worse the year before.
No, he was
he couldn't have been worse.
And I think sort of like Kotsar absorbed his fouling this year because he would be bad sometimes with it too. They're both they just hack so bad sometimes.
Bro, I'm such a Gamecock fan, but miss me with the Mike Kotsar stuff. I
think he was better as a freshman.
He came on late in the year. But my God, I
like Hase, the bigger kid who can shoot. I like him a lot. I think he can be a really good player for us if he gets more of a post presence.
Who was did the kid like the Guy kid? Did he transfer? Somebody else transferred. I can't even remember their names because they literally didn't play. Yeah. And there was 2 of them that transferred. They basically, to me, I would say they would be scrubs because if you're not going to play in your freshman year and you're 7 foot tall, and you're letting Jason Cudd play in front of you, you're not going to ever be a college. If Jason Cudd plays in front of you, that's a problem,
dude. He is.
With all due respect,
he's like I think he can be a good player in like a year or 2, but he hasn't fit into his body yet, and you can tell when he like plays. It's like
pasty white dude.
It's like watching Bogdanovich in the NBA for the Clippers, or Mironic, whatever, something bitch in the NBA for the Clippers. He's like 7'3", and it looks like he's like a calf that just came out of the womb running in the NBA for. He's so bad sometimes. God, I really do think Silva. I think Silva would definitely come back, but if Bowen doesn't hear soon, I think there's a chance he declares. Just because he's such like he could go to the NBA and play in the G League for a year.
He could go to the NBA and just not have to worry about any of this NCAA bullshit anymore.
Yeah,
like why would you?
Because if the stories about his dad are true, that his dad took the money and he had like no idea, but that's such a hard thing to determine. Like did he really not have any idea what was going on to me? I don't know.
I mean, bro, now that you start to think about it, like I'm starting to get swayed that way. It's like, why would he even risk like coming back and then not getting to play? It's like you said, he can get drafted. I mean, the only thing he'd miss out on is a huge paycheck. Because he'd obviously get drafted way higher after a year of playing and dominating the SEC. But it's like, would you rather just go ahead and go to the league and play a year in the G League and then be an absolute stud, or take the chance and go back to South Carolina? And
I think, to me, his best option would be if they reinstated him, would be to go to South Carolina, average 16-6. Have a March Madness run, try to get the Sweet 16 if you can. That to me would be a really good place to be at for the team we're going to have next year, and then get drafted because that's about the only way.
Dude, yeah, I just want to watch him play. Like you heard about how good he is. Like I just want to watch him play.
I watched some of his highlights, and he's
out watching him play.
He's not a shooter in my opinion. I think he's just a get to the bat. He can go get you 50. He can go get you 20 again. He could be a Sendarius Stonewall, but probably not average as much because he wouldn't get the amount of shots Thorne did just because he was just a beast his senior year.
Right. Absolutely. All right, moving on. We're going to talk a little bit of baseball as well. I actually just got off the Caught Looking Show, which is Armchair's college baseball podcast. If you didn't know, go ahead and follow it. They're on iTunes, Caught Looking Show. I want to plug those guys a little bit. South Carolina baseball has risen from the dead. I think maybe that's one reason for us stepping away as – I really feel like with this team, the more I don't watch, the better they do. So I'm scared to kind of watch this weekend and really dive back into it again. But, man, South Carolina baseball, after losing to Presbyterian, tons of fans calling for Coach Kingston's head, had been losing just conference series after conference series. South Carolina goes on to sweep LSU at home and then travel to Vanderbilt and win 2 of 3 in a wild series in which they were down 7-0 after 3 innings on Friday, came back and won 8-7, and then won the Sunday game in which they were down, I believe, 9-6 in the 8th Carlos Cortez, it's a 3-run bomb to tie it. South Carolina then takes the lead in the top of the ninth, 10-9. And Vanderbilt had a chance in the bottom of the eighth with 2 guys on and nobody out. And the Gamecocks were able to get out of trouble and then again take the lead in the ninth and, win the series. So South Carolina facing a huge weekend series this weekend at Founders Park, nonetheless, against the Ole Miss Rebels. Thomas, obviously, I know you're not a huge baseball guy, but I know you've been keeping up with it. Talk about what you've seen, not even so much just from on the field, but just from the fan perspective, the feeling around campus, the feeling definitely on Twitter, just the shift you've seen from, how fans were feeling maybe 3 weeks ago to now.
I mean, I know from looking on Twitter, I'm constantly on Twitter, plug myself at Tom_the bomb. If you haven't followed me yet, give me a follow. Anyway, from what I've seen on Twitter, it's more of like a lot of fans and even on boards, I've seen them like calling for Kingston's head. And I'm just so against firing a coach that's inherited a dumpster fire of a team and calling for his head after 3/4 of a season. I don't get it.
I almost wish they'd have pulled an April Fool's joke and fired him and then been like, do you see how absurd this is?
Yeah.
Okay, it's April 2nd. He's actually not fired, but do you see how absurd this is?
Because my thing is like, I don't believe in firing coaches until 3 years because then it's completely their program. Like, I just don't know. It's hard to tell because baseball is such a weird sport and like you can be so hot and so cold in like within a week of time. Like we lost Presbyterian and then swept LSU the following weekend. Doesn't make any sense. I just don't get it. But I just would think that to me, I know a lot of the hate is coming from them losing to the Citadel and Presbyterian and teams like those and losing the Clemson series probably was a stinger if I had to guess.
Oh, yeah.
You got to give the man time because he's building a good program, in my opinion. I think he's a hard-nosed, blue-collar guy like Ray Tanner always hires, like with Frank Martin and Will Muschamp. I just think you got to give him a little more time before you say,
you can obviously tell the culture has changed with South Carolina being able to come back and just be mentally resilient enough to sweep an LSU team. I mean, not just – they dominated them. Dominated an LSU team, a pretty good team at that. Being able to go on the road at Vandy and take 2 of 3, I mean, which is Vandy. They're not great this season, but Vandy is still Vandy, and at Vandy is still at Vandy. So, I mean, this weekend's going to tell a lot because Ole Miss is the 4th-ranked team in the country. They're projected top 8 national seed. I think the biggest thing it's going to come down to, I mean, really the thing that people have to understand, too, they were calling for Kingston's head and stuff like that. I mean, the reason South Carolina has resurged and come back, they finally got healthy again. I mean, you take any team in the country, if they lost guys, I mean, South Carolina lost Noah Campbell, TJ Hopkins, Madison Stokes, and I'm not even going to call the name of the Twitter account because I feel like anyone, if you're a Gamecock fan, you're on Twitter, you know who this dude is because Tyler Johnson's called him out before and we've called him out before. But the fact that some people would have the audacity to say that, our guys are soft and then they're not playing through pain or injury and that's why we're not great anymore, that is the biggest joke ever.
I hate that stuff with fans.
I just want to throw that out there. But anyways,
most of the guys who call people out or like players out on Twitter about being hurt have probably never played a sport in their life and B, never had an injury. Because they don't know, you don't know what it's like until you have it done. Like
I'm like, dude, TJ Hopkins is an absolute baller, absolute battler. Like he would be out there if he could. But anyways, kind of got off on a tangent there. Anyways, I mean, South Carolina has gotten healthy. I mean, they've gotten everybody back. Yeah. Carlos Cortez is doing eerily like the same exact thing he did last year. He's starting to click late in the season. I mean, I was looking. He leads this team in home runs again. He has 12 home runs, and they've got 3 more SEC series. The fact that he could finish the season with 15 home runs is absurd. I mean, he was hitting like 115 after a month. He was
terrible after the beginning. Like I thought – just from what I heard from the fans, because I really don't pay that much attention to baseball. Like he was hot shit last year, basically, and at the beginning of the year,
he turned it on in the in SEC play last year, and then he had a crazy good SEC tournament.
Again, baseball is such a hot and cold sport. Like you can be 7 for 21 one weekend, the next bat 4 for 30. Like it's crazy what happens.
I mean, there are some guys too in baseball that they traditionally just get off to slow starts for some reason. They're guys that like need to see a lot of pitches or like get their timing down or whatever. I don't know if he is that guy, but I mean he looked bad, and he looked bad early in the year, and they benched him. They moved him down the lineup. Now he's finally coming back in. He had a huge 3-run homer at Vanderbilt. This weekend to me, though, is going to come down to starting pitching. South Carolina starting pitching has been just a roller coaster ride all season. You had Adam Hill, who started the year with the back-to-back games of 14 strikeouts and back-to-back outings against Charleston Southern and Clemson. Then had the arm troubles. Cody Morris has just been all over the place, has some of the best stuff, I think, in the SEC, but just really, really inconsistent in finding his own and kind of showing up every week. And then that number 3 spot in the rotation, that Sunday role, if you will, has always been Sunday, but they had struggled to fill that role. I mean, with John Gilreath, you went to Rich Chapman, John Gilreath, you even had Eddie Demarius in the Florida series. I mean, it's been a roller coaster ride. They bring in Logan after his impressive start against North Carolina and Charlotte. Give Logan Chapman a chance in the weekend's rotation. He throws a gem at Arkansas, throws a gem versus LSU. Got roughed up pretty good. He was the pitcher that gave up the 7 runs in 3 innings against Vanderbilt. But I mean, overall, he's a guy that a true freshman. I think it was the 20th or 21st round pick out of high school. A guy that has really good stuff. And I said early in the season, I mean, he had really good stuff, and you kind of see the potential, but was just a guy that needed to work through the kinks that a freshman goes through and kind of building consistency and stuff like that and confidence. And, I mean, I think he's kind of coming to his own. And with a lot of South Carolina's pitching staff and the bullpen, a lot of those young guys, TJ Shook, Graham Lawson, Demarius, Gilreath, they've all come into their own as well. But will the South Carolina starting rotation be able to step up against a very talented Ole Miss lineup and deliver? Because you look at Adam Hill, ERA over 4.5. You look at Cody Morris, ERA over 4.5, and you think to yourself, how, especially a guy like Adam Hill. I mean, I think really what it goes to show you, and I think Adam Hill's record is 4-5, which if you'd have told me that Adam Hill would have a losing record at this point in the season, I would not have believed you. But I think what it goes to show you is that, when you go from a Sunday role like Adam Hill was in to the Friday night role, or, he hasn't been in every Friday night, but he's been in most of the Friday nights. He is the ace. When you go from that Sunday role to being the ace, it is a much, much bigger adjustment than people realize. I mean, not only are you, getting a team's best shot on the first night of the series, but you're facing the other team's absolute best pitcher, which in the SEC is probably a dude that's going to get drafted in the first 4 rounds of the MLB draft. So, I mean, I just think South Carolina's going to need all 3 of their guys, though, to throw well. And I think even at that, it may not be enough because Ole Miss is a very, very talented team. I hope so. I want to keep doubting this South Carolina team because I feel like the more I doubt them, the better they play. Yeah. So, I mean, I literally tuned, I was keeping up with the scores on my phone this weekend and saw Vanderbilt up 6-0, I think it was, on Friday, and was like, well, that game's over. I tuned back in, see South Carolina won 8-7. I'm like, wow. So I feel like maybe I should just keep doubting South Carolina. They'll keep winning. I don't know. But it would be an absolute huge, huge weekend series because after this you've got our huge weekend series victory. You've got next week, actually, next Wednesday, South Carolina plays College of Charleston at Spirit Communications Park, which will be the rematch against Chad Holbrook the first time.
God, I hope we beat the ever-living crap out of them. Just because
it's going to be –
Holbrook drove that program into the absolute freaking dirt. I don't care what anyone says. He was a horrible coach. Every time I think about Bunning, I just think of him and just how much I hate it.
Just a horrible situational coach. And I mean, I told people this, not to get off on too much of a tangent on Chad Holbrook, but I mean, I just told people I think he's probably a great coach for College of Charleston and the pressure that comes with being a College of Charleston head coach, which is not a lot. But when it comes to being the head guy at South Carolina that has to have all the pressure on him to make all of the decisions, I mean, it obviously wore on him. It obviously was not a good fit.
I mean, when you come off expectations like when Ray Tanner wins back-to-back national championships, it's going to be hard. That's like whoever replaces Nick Saban at Alabama, even though
it's impossible.
It's going to be it's not. You're not going to have a good time.
Ron Zook replaced Steve Spurrier of Florida.
Well, I mean, it's like it's just such a difficult thing to do when you come in and replace a coach that all the fans regard as a legend. Everybody in South Carolina administration and whoever you want to talk about at South Carolina regards as a player, a coach, and just a great person as Ray Tanner. I just think the light was too much for him. I think he would have been a good bench coach at South Carolina. I think he's a good coach, but I just think the light was too big, and it happens sometimes. It's not. Yeah. Some people just can't handle it.
The stage was too big. No, absolutely. And but yeah, I'm definitely one that I hope they absolutely beat the living hell out of College of Charleston. But anyways, it should be a fun series again. I mean, all 3 games at Founders Park this weekend, going to be a beautiful weekend for baseball. And again, I mean, anytime you have a team that's top 5 in the country coming to your ballpark and you've got the kind of momentum that South Carolina's got, and you've got as much on the line, because I'm not sure, I'm sure you probably didn't see this, Thomas, but D1 baseball comes out every week. They have their projection, the field of 64, basically.
Yeah, we're like
in the postseason. South Carolina is projected as a number 3 seed in the East Carolina regional, which, South Carolina the week before wasn't even projected to be in the postseason at all. So, while it isn't hosting a regional, maybe not as great as we would hope. I mean, we talked a little bit about this, before the season even started for South Carolina baseball. I think in Coach Kingston's first year, with kind of, like you said, just the mess that Chad Holbrook left behind, I think just getting back to the postseason and competing and, giving yourself a chance in the postseason is a successful, is going to be a successful year one. And I really do think that if South Carolina can continue to play well and make the postseason, whether they're a 2 seed, 3 seed, whatever, I think they'd be a tough out for anybody. Because I still think South Carolina's got enough talent to sneak up on somebody and possibly win a regional as an underdog. So,
I mean, I saw a tweet that was like, I saw a quote tweet about the D1 baseball where they got ranked as a 3 seed in the East Carolina region. And the quote tweet was like, they could sweep this region and they could also get swept out, and there's no telling how it was going to happen. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly how this team has been this year.
I saw a tweet. Somebody said this team has been too good and too bad to predict how they'll do in any game, because I mean, they have been, when they've been good, they've been so good, and when they've been bad, they've been so bad. I mean, it is really hard to fathom how many midweek games they've lost to smaller in-state schools. I mean,
you shouldn't lose those type of games, regardless of what the talent level is. When you're what I would consider a blue blood baseball program like South Carolina, you should never lose a game.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, to be fair to who did South Carolina play opening weekend? Was it? And I was there, and I can't even remember.
I can't even
remember. They're from Virginia too, but
VMI.
Anyways, VMI. There you go. To play VMI, I mean, they lost opening night to VMI. It like literally the writing was on the wall from that first game.
Yeah, it's gonna be a year.
You could see that coming, like those kind of the letdowns in those smaller games. But again, I mean, South Carolina has found a way to turn it around. Like I said, they've got some of their big key pieces back. They've had some kids grow up, and again, I think if they can make the postseason, it's got to be a season where you'll have those idiots on Twitter that will say that, Kingston can't win the big game and that he, blah, 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 whatever. But from a realistic, I think I'd say the majority of South Carolina fans will be fairly pleased and will look forward to improvements next year and at least give the South Carolina fan base something to build on, that baseball is somewhat back. So,
well, I think a reasonable goal for this year's baseball program was to just make a regional. If they do that,
it's more than Holbrook did the last two of the last 3 years. So
yeah, we went from back-to-back World Series, making another trip to the final of the World Series, whatever it's called. I really don't know. And then I think we made it to Super Regionals next year. Holbrook's first year, lost North Carolina. I could be wrong on that, but we went from that to basically being not the Vanderbilt of SEC football, but basically being close to that level of baseball. It's terrible, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, South Carolina missing the postseason 2 of the last 3 years, and you get back to the postseason. I mean, and you know what? I'll tell you this. I would not be surprised. I would not be shocked. South Carolina they were so bad, even under Ray Tanner in the SEC tournament. Would not be shocked if South Carolina, I know I'm looking way ahead, but I would not be shocked if South Carolina went to the SEC tournament and just had a different kind of moxie and mojo about them and actually made a run. I just, you never know. I could be completely wrong, and they could just continue to be terrible in the SEC tournament. But I would not be shocked at all if Coach Kingston's able to turn that around.
I mean, Holbrook and Frank Martin are kind of similar in the way that we've always just been trash in the SEC tournaments in baseball and basketball recently.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is, but I mean, maybe we can make a run in baseball.
If South Carolina can get hot, bro, I mean, who knows? Who knows? I mean, like I said, I just think that I have this weird feeling that maybe, that's a part of South Carolina that maybe, Coach Kingston, just the mindset he's brought, can kind of turn it around. So, moving on, we're going to talk a little bit of football as well. This is where, Thomas, we're going to really need your expertise, because as anyone who's been following this show for the last year, or follows me, or follows Armchair South Carolina, knows I am not exactly the recruiting expert, especially not when it is the month of May and National Signing Day is next February, or I guess early signing days in December now. So, anyways, but there has been December. But there has been some big time football news. South Carolina, just starting with today, because it's literally right here. South Carolina is adding a graduate transfer defensive back from Texas A&M. Nick Harvey is going to play his final season of eligibility at South Carolina, which, Thomas, I didn't even know South Carolina was still looking to add another graduate transfer. And then South Carolina earlier in the week, I'm not sure if it was over the weekend, but South Carolina added, correct me before I say,
4-star tight end.
Is he a tight end? Okay, he is a tight end. Yeah, the tight end from, not sure where he's from, but Kenyon. What was his first name again?
Travis. No, Travion Kenyon. That's it.
Yeah, Travion Kenyon. That's right. Yeah, so the latest, and he is 2019. Is that right?
Yeah, he's 2019. He's a 4-star tight end. He's not ranked by 24/7 for whatever reason. They're really weird with that stuff. But he's like a decently high 4-star, I think. And
yeah, I'm looking at it right here on Rivals. He's on Rivals with them.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I've seen on film, basically, I guess we'll hit him first. From what I've seen, he would fit more into the Hayden Hurst role as far as like explosive plays, because he had a lot of those in his film that I've seen. He's just a player,
212, by the way.
But 6'4", like he's 6'4", 212 and can run. Like homeboy was. I saw multiple times where he was just like running past safeties and they couldn't run with him. And Monroe's like Monroe High School, which is where I think he goes to school. I could be wrong. I know that's where his like hometown is. It's like a 3A North Carolina school. And North Carolina's pretty serious with putting out college football players, if you don't know. So I think his competition level was pretty good. I really, again, can't speak for it because I don't know North Carolina football that well. But just from his film I've seen, he could be him and Keyshawn Toney, I hope I say his name right, could be a lethal combination in a couple of years. If Will Register and the other tight end recruits we have don't develop at all. But, God, he could be lethal.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think, too, that I'm not sure if you saw this on Twitter, but South Carolina apparently is like the most tight ends drafted, which is a huge stat that I had I think it were the most I'm not sure if it's the most or second most, something like that. But, yeah, they've had a ton. I mean, you look at some of the guys, Hayden Hurst, obviously, Jared Cook. You look at, like, Busta Anderson, Justice Cunningham. Yeah.
Was he Mr. Irrelevant? I feel like he was Mr. Irrelevant.
Oh, yeah, no, he was, because they had 2 years in a row they had missed. They had Ryan Suckup and then
Suckup was,
I'm not sure if it was
Cunningham.
And then Cunningham, yeah.
It was either Suckup then Cunningham or Cunningham then Suckup. Either way, we had back-to-back. We had back-to-back really close Mr. Irrelevance, and I don't think we're the only school in history to ever do that. So suck on that one, Clemson fans.
Yeah, and then South Carolina, again, like I said, adding Nick Harvey. Let me ask you this. Does this mean – because the first thing I thought of, is this the nail in the coffin that the Dutch Fork wide receiver will not be a Gamecock?
It's been confirmed, not confirmed, but it's been pretty well known for a while that he was not going to be a South Carolina Gamecock for this next class. And it sucks because he's such a good player, and you've seen multiple coaches rave about how good of a player he is and how lethal of a receiver he can be. But, I mean, it sucks, but if he's not there academically or he's not there as far as like – yeah, there's nothing they can do. It's not their fault. If you can't get in academically in the SEC, like especially South Carolina's like level of like getting accepted for football is not that like ridiculous. You at that point just don't deserve it, in my opinion. But the Harvey kid, I haven't seen any film of him. I mean, he started last year and had like 60 tackles in the nickel for Texas A&M, so should be a good player. You can't get worse than DJ Smith, so I'm just hoping he's better than that.
Oh, my God, dude, yes. Yeah, I think, you asked me today, did DJ Smith get signed? I'm like, probably not.
Yeah, I hated watching him play, dude. It made me cringe every time. He was so bad sometimes.
Dude, he was kind of like that back the back two safeties when they had Chris Moody too. And I mean, our good friends over at the big Spur, what is it, JC Sherbert and what's the other guy's name?
Tony Morrell or something like that.
No, the other guy other guy on the podcast. I forget. But anyways, they basically said that Chris Moody basically said that his grandma could run a faster 40 than Chris Moody. So that he's part of that backfield. So
yeah,
with all due respect to DJ Smith, I feel like he always tried to ball out and like play his hardest, but just the kid just did not have it. So
he tried, but you can just tell sometimes when like kids shouldn't be at SEC schools, and that kid should not have been at SEC school. Like he's probably a starter at a lower college. Like he's a starter at some kind of like USA conference, like or whatever that conference is, that like UCF and all those ones are in. He's not a bona fide SEC starter. He just isn't. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, if nothing else, too, this grad transfer is going to add depth. I mean, and it's the second one from the state of Texas they've gotten. Nick Harvey from to A&M. Then you had the kid, JT from Rice. So I mean,
yeah. I mean,
just picking him out wherever you can get him.
In my opinion, if you're getting a grad transfer, and he only has 1 year eligibility, you're going to play him. Like he's not coming in. So I think JT Ibe could be a really good player from this film. Guy, he's something we missed.
Yeah, he looks good.
He's something we missed in South Carolina since like probably DJ Springer in terms of safety. He's just going to come down and like he's going to come in the box and light you up. And I think Ibe does.
Does he remind you kind of like the Isaiah Thompson kid from Kansas?
Yeah. They play pretty similar.
He reminds me of that.
He was a really good player. I wish he'd have been on another. I wish he would have had the chance.
Yeah, he was on a He was on a terrible defense. That was the 2014 defense. He was on.
That was the 3-9 defense. I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure it was the 15. God, he like you said, he was a good player, but I mean,
and he's like a core. He's a core special teamer now from Tampa Bay, which is like.
I mean, he's in the NFL. No, he's a good player.
I think Ibe and Harvey can be good starters. I think Harvey was out all last season when I checked his stats because he didn't have any for last season. So I'm pretty sure that's why he transferred. And plus with whatever the guy is from Florida State that came in, Jimbo Fisher. With Fisher coming in, I think he just decided it was probably best for him to get out while he can.
I just think it's really interesting that, Muschamp obviously said, I mean, you've heard him harp on it before spring practice, after spring practice, that safety was an area of concern. I mean, he's just –
Dude. I mean,
when you have this guy, so I mean, obviously he's addressing it.
I mean, when you have Javon Charleston at your first team safety, like
that's pretty
something's wrong. And I think a bunch of the younger guys who did like Dickerson and there's another one I can't think of his name off the top of my head that were supposed to be Taven Jackson were two guys that were supposed to be safeties last year and just didn't play because of injuries.
Well, injuries.
I think having both of them be back next year, learning under Ibe and Harvey and Rashad Fenton too, is going to help a lot with them.
Well, dude, I've heard so much like people are like harping on Jalen Dickerson, like he's supposed to be like the next dude. So I need to see him play. I might have read this wrong or like heard this wrong in an interview, but I swear last summer Muschamp said he's the best talent I've seen at safety since Earl Thomas. I remember like he did. I'm pretty sure he did say that. Yeah,
which is insane to say because Earl Thomas is.
It's just absurd to say that about a dude that's never stepped on the field. Like, I mean, obviously Muschamp knows more than we do about defense, but I mean,
he's a. You want to talk about? Do you want to talk about a coach that is just killing it talent evaluation wise? Is Will Muschamp, and it's insane to me how good he's been doing. I mean, you look at DJ Wanham. He was like a 2-star tight end defensive end that had an offer from Indiana, and he's turned into an all SEC player.
Yeah, that's why I think it's absurd. Like when I saw that our Armchair Ole Miss account trying to talk trash about, what has Muschamp done to deserve, it's like, dude, if a defensive player gets the Will Muschamp seal of approval, he's a good defensive player, period, point blank, in the discussion. I mean, it's kind of like if he gets the Jeremy Pruitt seal of approval, the Kirby Smart, or Will Muschamp and T-Rob know what they're doing with defense.
They know defense, and I hope we can hold on T-Rob as long as we can because he's going to be one of the next really good head coaches somewhere. He's got it written on him and Brian McClendon have it written all over them.
We have two of the best recruiters at our coordinator position. I mean, I think that's one of the huge reasons McClendon got the OC job is because he's such a great recruiter.
I think Muschamp knew he was going to lose him to Tennessee and Jeremy Pruitt if he didn't. hire him as OC.
Exactly. He's not going to let him beat him at Tennessee. So I think that was
which is smart though. I mean, I don't blame him for that. And from what I saw in the spring game, and from what I saw in the Outback Bowl against Michigan, he's a competent OC. He's equally as good as Kurt Roper is, and that's enough for him to get that job.
God, we could be equally as good as Kurt Roper.
I think I could call plays on Madden.
Pure play calling. It's like scheme thing. I guarantee you could have given me a playbook. I could have called plays. At least just call plays.
He was just so bad sometimes. It made me mad watching it sometimes, just the way they played, like the way he called plays. Because part of me, I know Bentley had a sophomore slump, and he did not have a good year last year. But with the way Garcia talked about his mechanics in multiple videos I've seen, just tells me like it's not all on him. A lot of it was on Roper, the way he was throwing the ball.
Yep. I agree with you 100%. All right, so moving on, obviously with recruiting, I guess kind of in full swing. Are there any big recruiting weekend visits coming up? I know we talked about you had Crouch the running back and Pickens the DN. Anything big news with them? What's going on in recruiting?
Crouch recently visited last weekend. It looks like they've gained some traction back on Clemson and Georgia in terms of his recruiting. And there's another – hold on a second. There's a June 2nd, Chris Steele and Zach Pickens are visiting. And Chris Steele, if you don't know, is a bona fide five-star from California. He plays against Ryan Helinski, the current quarterback commit, every year at Helinski plays at Orange Lutheran. Steele plays at St. John Bosco, which is one of the best football conferences in California. But anyway, Steele is going to be taking his official visit June 2nd, I think, or his last official, which is a great thing to have. He's not committing until the beginning of July, though. And right. Pickens is supposed to be committing before next season starts, from what I've heard. And with having one of his official visits being at South Carolina and him being a current South Carolina lean is just a great sign for us. Like, if we can get both of those guys in this class, I'll be satisfied. Steele's a long shot, but Pickens is one we have a realistic chance with. And something like, I understood the hate for last year's class with defensive ends. We missed on Xavier Thomas and KJ Henry, who both went to Clemson, and a couple others. But I meant to say I didn't really understand last year, because I kind of see, because that Clemson class was so stacked last year. But, man, if he misses on Pickens this year, having a lead on him like he does, it's going to be tough to not be a little upset about that one.
We talked about it before the show. I mean, just the amount of DNs that South Carolina missed on last year. I mean, granted, who they were going against, but many guys in your backyard. It's tough to it's tough to swallow.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's easy to see how Clemson can pitch against South Carolina, and it's the fact that they've been to 3 straight national college football playoffs, and they've been to 2 championships and won one. But I know a lot of those teams were basically because of Deshaun Watson, and that he was their man. And now that they have Trevor Lawrence coming in, if he can step into that role, I think they're going to have a really good team regardless. But if he can step into that role, Clemson's going to be tough regardless of how we are or not.
Yeah, that's so painful to hear. that's not fun.
I mean,
you say that, but it's the truth. No,
it's realistic.
Yeah. It is. But you know what? South Carolina, again, I think they've got a lot to build on, and I just think you're going to have to continue to kind of just chip away. And I mean, I'm optimistic, but I just really feel like I don't know if it'll be this year. I don't know next year. I don't know when it'll be, but one of these years, South Carolina. So it always happens this way. The way the rivalry is just going to turn is that South Carolina is going to play South Carolina is going to play their A game, and Clemson's going to play their C game, and South Carolina is going to upset Clemson. It's going to change the perception, and it's going to turn the rivalry. And that's how rivalries always work. I mean, that's how it works. So
I thought last year was a good year for them to be able to turn around with the way they were playing, but it just
the
offense was so bad in the Clemson game that it hurt us. Like, our defense played well.
That game was like what 7? I mean, that game was like 14-0 going to half. I mean that with 0 offense, and one of those was a pick six. I mean, the defense did everything they needed to do. I mean, you get the offense rolling, you've got a solid chance.
I think Muschamp is some crazy number of wins against losses when his offense scores more than 19 points. I think he's 20 something and 2 or something like that. It's insane. give the man a good offensive coordinator and let him go to work. And I think a lot of this year is, I think the new quarterback coach, Dan Werner, is going to have a lot to do with that offense and how they work and how fast their tempo is. Because if you didn't watch the spring game, or if you're listening to you didn't watch the spring game, go back. They literally, if they gain more than 5 yards, they're snapping the ball with 30 seconds left on the play clock. That's how fast they're moving.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be a completely different beast, and just a completely different look this fall from the South Carolina offense. But again, just because we were touching on the South Carolina Clemson battle, I mean, I think Will Muschamp and staff are going to continue to recruit, and I think South Carolina fans just need to be patient. And obviously, Clemson has built a program, Dabo Swinney, but let them boast, let them talk. But I think South Carolina, as long as you continue to chip away, get a couple guys you're not supposed to get. I do think there will be a turning point in the rivalry. There will be a game where South Carolina beats Clemson. I don't know when it'll be, but I do think that it will. Obviously, eventually you continue to get good players. It's going to happen. So,
I mean, Dabo had like years to build what he's doing at Clemson right now, again, he was winning.
How many whippings did he take from South Carolina and Steve Spurrier before they finally turned it around again? That's what I'm saying, bro. The rivalry's going streaks, and Clemson's going for their 5th straight win over South Carolina. And but think about what South Carolina has been through in those 5 years. Steve Spurrier, absolutely the bottom falling out, him quitting in the middle of a season. Yeah, there has been a lot of turmoil that happened in those 5 years. So it's honestly, even if Clemson was only a 7-5 team, an 8-4 team, like it's not shocking as to what's happened. You know what I mean? So it's it's not like South Carolina. That would be a great poll for us to run. What would be more for, and I really would love to hear like realistic Clemson fans' perspectives. Like, what do you think is more frustrating? Losing to your rival when you're not good and you possibly get blown out and you have no chance, or losing 5 in a row like that, or losing 5 in a row where you're a 10-win team and you're winning the ACC and you can't beat your rival? Because I would be very interested to know.
I think
what the perception was.
Because they were so dominant. They're still dominant in the ACC, but when they were so dominant, they were really good those 5 years in the ACC when we were playing against them and we won the 5 in a row. Like that had to be.
Boy, couldn't beat South Carolina.
That had to kill them every year, knowing that we're going to play South Carolina this year. And it's probably going to suck, and we're probably going to lose. But
the only thing I think that would make it where they would say the contrary is the only thing that makes it worse for South Carolina is that Clemson has won a national championship. If they hadn't won a national championship, it's like, well, they still don't have the natty, but it's like now they've won. It's like, okay, that's what's made it worse. But
watch out for the 30 for 30 on New Spring Church in 5 years when they it's coming.
If Zion Williamson would have went too, there would have been an immediate.
If Zion Williamson would have went there, I would have immediately just been like, "Yep, they're paying everyone. I don't care what you say."
I did a Periscope video about this a couple months ago, but your entire defensive line comes back and they all were projected first round.
Dude,
3 of them projected first rounders. That is absolutely
so insane to me how they get Christian Wilkins, not Dexter Lawrence, Austin Bryant, and Cleveland Farrell to come back. You shouldn't. Those are 3. Christian Wilkins is a top 3 pick, probably. Austin Bryant's a top 20 pick, and Cleveland Farrell's probably another top 20 pick. How do you get all of them to come back just because they want to play together for another year? That's such BS to me.
Yeah, that makes. Here's the thing, bro. The money's not an issue for them because the money's not an issue. If that makes sense. That's all I'm going to say about that. Yeah. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up. We kind of wanted to keep it kind of a short, quick hitter episode, more so introducing Thomas, getting a feel for what we're going to be doing. Obviously, again, we've had a little bit of a hiatus. We're going to be adding, starting next week, some really fun segments at the beginning of the show, probably 3 or 4 different segments, kind of liven the show up a little bit. Like I said, really just kind of, it's going to be a blast. Like I said, really wanted to just kind of go through this week and sort of touch on some things that we had, missed in our little break, if you will. Just kind of go through some things, some big news. And kind of get the ball rolling again. But yeah, we're gonna have some great segments, some pretty funny stuff, kind of bring some humor to the show, and yeah, it should be an absolute blast. So
it's gonna be really fun. It's gonna be a great experience.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. So last thing I want to touch on, because I feel like it's something huge that happened that we didn't really talk about that we should, but the Ryan Helinski commitment. Holy crap! Just what a big time pickup for Will Muschamp and company. I just feel like the biggest. I'll tell you this: if South Carolina is not good or never wins a national title, never wins the SEC under Will Muschamp, it's not because he can't recruit. Because my God.
Yeah. The man's putting in work.
I mean, just the man going out to California to get guys, Texas. Like
I've never
seen South Carolina recruit like this.
I've never seen a player from California commit to a school in the SEC not named Alabama. Like that's how crazy this is to me. Like we have a high 4-star quarterback who's probably could be an elite quarterback in the SEC if he develops right and DeCarrion Joyner ends up having to move change position or something like that. But geez, he has elite player written all over him the way he plays.
Do you think that's in the cards for DeCarrion Joyner?
If him moving positions, yeah. If he doesn't develop as a passer, I mean straight up that, or he changes.
Do you think DeCarrion Joyner is the next Lorenzo Nunez?
I think he's a better passer than Nunez.
He's probably a better playmaker in general.
Yeah, Nunez had a horrible team around him. Like not horrible, but that team is not very good.
That was the 2015 team that went 3-9. They were terrible.
Oh, that was 2015. I thought it was 2016. Yeah. Okay, I was wrong about that.
I literally remember Nunez scoring a touchdown at UGA when it was 50-7 or 45-7 or something like that. Yeah.
You remember who were we playing? And he threw a pass. It got batted down. Sean Carson caught it, ran to the end zone for a touchdown. Maybe it wasn't Sean Carson, but it was
Missouri. It was at Missouri. No, it was Sean Carson. It was at Missouri. He literally just heaved up a prayer. I mean, and it wasn't even like a Hail Mary pass. They were at like the 15-yard line.
Yeah, they were close to the end zone, and they got batted down. Sean Carson caught it.
They got tipped, and Carson caught it and went in. I just remember I was at the UCF game when he started that game and played, and everybody kind of thought, oh, yeah, Nunez, quarterback of the future. And it just absolutely went down the tube from there.
That shows you how bad our quarterback evaluation was for a couple of years. When you had Nunez, Connor Mitch, and Perry Orth were the starting quarterbacks for like 3 years. And McElwain. McElwain was terrible. I don't care what anyone says. He was one of the biggest busts I've ever seen as a quarterback.
Yeah.
He was
he was
so bad.
It's hard to – I mean, because we have Jake Bentley now, I almost take it like for granted. We've had him for a season and a half, but, man.
Well, having Connor Shaw, right. Makes you –
Connor Shaw. But those years were so bad, they almost feel like they didn't exist to a degree. I mean, Muschamp's first season, like it's funny to think that we were like – I remember how happy I was after South Carolina beat Vanderbilt 10-7.
Yeah, like you shouldn't get ecstatic as a fan when you're beating Vanderbilt by a game-winning field goal.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And okay, here's I'm gonna go ahead and give my hot take real quick. South Carolina got sort of lucky last year with the way the dumpster fires that were Tennessee and Florida. Because
of course. I mean,
we won those games. We beat Vanderbilt by a touchdown. We beat Florida by 8. We beat Tennessee by 6. And that receiver missed a ball that hit him in the hands that would have beat us that game. There were just so many games that were just too close for comfort.
Oh, the Tennessee game almost puked in my own hands. Like
it was so bad. And it is not much. A lot of that wasn't Muschamp's fault. It was that our offense was just so bad and could not put points.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing to me is South Carolina got a little lucky, but the thing about it is like the biggest judgment of South Carolina, are they going to be an upper echelon, at least SEC East team, is can you take advantage of when those teams aren't good? And they did. Yeah. They beat them. They stole guys from them on the recruiting trail. I mean, South Carolina, obviously, South Carolina got a guy from Florida State. So, I mean, long as you take advantage of
getting J.C. Horn from Tennessee was a big deal.
Yeah, and then Rosendo Lewis from FSU to flip, and then I mean, it was. Yeah. There's tons of guys like that. I'm sure they were in battles with that maybe would have chose Florida or Tennessee had things been different for them.
Like if the whole season next year to me is going to depend on how the game goes against Georgia. Because if we beat Georgia, it's huge, obviously, because you're likely to be set up to win the SEC East. Then if you lose bad at home to Georgia in week 2, that just is not a good sign for the rest of the season.
It's just a bad look in the sense that nothing has changed.
Yeah, and if you're competitive with Georgia like we were last year at Georgia, I think it'll be a big difference. And I don't think Georgia's going to be nearly as good as they were last year because they lost Sony Michel and Nick Chubb and what's the guy's name, Isaiah Wynn, and the
linebacker, Roquan Smith.
They lost Roquan Smith and Lorenzo Carter. Like
they lost a ton. Yeah.
They lost 5 guys who went in like the first 40 picks.
And then you've got UGA fans that I know that are talking about how they want Justin Fields to be the starting quarterback.
You're smoking crack. Like Justin Fields
I literally told them, you know what, the bet, because they were like, you know, what if you go into week 1 and Jake Fromm 3 straight series, 3 and out, and Justin Fields comes in, throws a touchdown pass or blah blah. I was like, dude, as a South Carolina fan playing you guys week 2, that is like every South Carolina fan's wet dream is to have that happen. The number one question coming out of Athens week 2, is there a quarterback controversy? Because I guarantee you if that happens, South Carolina will just bust the doors open on the dogs for real.
It would be a 35-7 game like it was whenever we beat them so bad at home. Yeah, and Todd Gurley was like, I never want to play at South Carolina again.
Yeah, you better not come in that stadium with a quarterback controversy. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Barrett Sallee, when he came on our show last, he actually said he thought the biggest game of the season was Texas A&M. He was saying, and I said Kentucky, and he said, well, Kentucky better not be the biggest game of the season because Kentucky's going to be terrible this year. I said, I get that, Barrett, but South Carolina hasn't beaten them in 4 years. So, yeah, I mean, I'm starting with baby steps.
That's a big road game for us to win because if you don't win that game, then your psyche is just down. Yeah, at Kentucky is a huge road game for us.
Oh, dude, if you lose Kentucky, just throw out all of the goals you had. As far as the major goals, winning the East, anything like that, you're fighting again for a 7-5, 8-4 season. Nothing beyond that. If you lose to Kentucky again, I mean that game to me is just so big in the sense of like, if you just need to get over the hump and beat Kentucky to be like, okay, our program is better than this. We're making progress because
they beat Kentucky. You don't beat Kentucky. If they beat them like 24-13, I'll be happy. I will not say
I don't care. Just get a win. Get a win.
Get a dub.
I think all South Carolina fans would be like, I'm just glad we can chalk this one up as a dub this year. Yeah. I really don't care.
I mean, our schedule is pretty easier next year. I think if the cards line up right, they're looking at 10-2 in the regular season with the loss to Georgia and Clemson just because I don't think we match up that well with them. And I know everybody's going to hate me for saying that, but it's true. And 10-2, you're not saying this bad. It's a great year at 10-2.
Dude, something else I talked with Barrett Sallee about. He was basically saying that South Carolina is developing a program where they're going to win 8 to 9 games a year, and every 2 to 3 years catch lightning in a bottle and possibly win the SEC East and have a chance to win the SEC. I told Barrett Sallee, listen, if there's any South Carolina fan that tries to tell you they would be upset with that, they are out of their freaking mind. South Carolina has won 9 games 7 times in their history.
Yeah, I
will take a 9-win season. I will take a 9-win season every year. That's a fun football season.
Even talking with my dad about it, who grew up his entire life a Carolina fan, if they won 7 games a year, that was crazy to them. That's just how subpar the program has been.
It's absurd, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I think Muschamp's going to continue to build, and I think it'll be a really, really, really interesting season. But we'll get into all that later. Obviously, we're getting off on a tangent, but we'll get into all that. We're going to be previewing everything, talking everything. I mean, we're going to be talking all spring and summer Carolina football. You got to do something to pass the time, right? We're getting to the point where it's about to be 100 days to kick off, which I think we'll probably start doing is weekly, kind of go through, have a special little football feature to kind of pass the time again before we get to kick off. But with that being said, we will have all your coverage here on, you guys know where to follow us on all of our social media handles. Please be sure to go follow at the Spurs Up Show on Twitter. We will be breaking down everything with the South Carolina baseball series against Ole Miss, any recruiting news that happens, obviously, and any, Gamecock news related, anything breaking, of course. So be sure to check us out. Follow us at Armchair SCAR on Twitter, at Armchair S Carolina on Instagram, Armchair South Carolina on Facebook, and of course, ArmchairAllAmericans.com. So without anything else, without further ado, Thomas, it was a great first episode. We're going to have a ton more. Appreciate you coming on, being the permanent co-host, and I will shut up now and let this episode end. So appreciate you guys listening. We will catch you next time, and stay tuned.
Go Cox. Let's go.